Hey guys and gals, this is Matt Sumstine, and for the first time, I'm making a video based on the NFHS slideshow presentation about the new rules. So what we're going to cover are the 2017 new rules that affect the National Federation rulebook. First, let's start with the footballs. You're allowed to have a manufacturer's logo, and you're also allowed to have a school logo or a mascot logo. What you're not allowed to have is advertising. So you can't put on there Big Al's tractor trailer advertising and a phone number and a website. Stick strictly to the league logos, the team logos, and the ball manufacturer logos, and you're going to be great. Next involves the pregame meeting with the head coach, and for years it's been the referee and the umpire. But with the addition of the center judge in college and all kinds of different mechanics, and also sometimes people maybe not showing up on time, they've allowed for an alternate person to go with the referee for those coaches' meetings, which include making sure that the players are properly equipped. And I've given an example of the card that we use here for the state tournament and local high school games, which is basically made directly off of the NCAA equipment card that all coaches need to sign before any contest. Uniform colors. We all know that the home team needs to have the dark colored jersey, and there's been some controversy as to what constitutes dark. Well, now, based on the rule book by 2021, which is just a couple of years down the road, what constitutes dark is at least 70% grayscale on the grayscale chart. So you have time to get your uniforms established in the proper home team dark color. If the visiting team shows up with their dark jerseys on, then the referees can instruct the home team to change to their light colored jerseys, and then we report that to the league. We would like to avoid that at all costs, so home teams, dark jerseys. Here's one of the big ones, the blindside block. It's now illegal to forcefully initiate a blindside block with your shoulder or a crossbody block if the opponent does not see it coming. That's kind of the definition of a blindside block. Unless it's in the free blocking zone, that's an exception, but really that does not come into play at all because the free blocking zone disintegrates usually very quickly. But I've made a couple of training videos over the last couple of years. Take a look at a couple of these, and then we'll move on to the next rule. I'm going to let this play run through. You can see it is a change of direction punt return. There's a lot of action. I'm going to leave you the announcer's commentary and come back to you.
Uh-oh, Hooley goes down. Levi sets up a block. Flags are everywhere.
Yeah, this hit right here is why they put in the rule. It's a dangerous hit. It's a 200-pound player running full speed to a guy who doesn't see it. It knocks the helmet off. It puts a guy into a state of unknowing and possibly even ejection.
So Ensign Levi is down. The officials are conferencing right now to determine if that hit was flagrant enough to warrant an ejection.
Well, there's a lot going on that play, and we're going to really in detail take a look at 4 of these blocks, starting when the reverse field begins. The player highlighted is the person blocking, and the person who's pursuing has the yellow vision toward the runner, and the blocker has the red arrow direction. Now, if he goes that way, he's got to initiate open hands, head up. If he initiates forcefully with the shoulder, it's a foul, but he doesn't. You can see that he slides down to the right, and this is what's referred to as a screening blindside block. So there's no seek and destroy aspect to this. He's moving parallel. The contact is not initially forceful, even though he does lead with the shoulder, so that's a legal blindside block. Now, as the rest of this play opens up and develops, we're not going to see much from this angle. We're going to come back to the end zone, but what you want to see is we've got 3 trainers and coaches immediately going onto the field. This was immediately recognized as the type of hit that we're trying to avoid. Get into the end zone view and see how these set up. The first one, you can see that the pursuing player has eyes on the runner, and he is contacted from his blind side forcefully with the shoulder, and that force is enough to put him on the ground. You could also see by that still shot that the helmets align. This is a very common occurrence on blindside blocks, which means you could have a combination illegal blindside block and targeting call. Now, let's look at the second one. You can see 52, he has eyes on the defender, and the defender is not in a seek and destroy mode. He's moving away. And when these players come together, it's a cooperative block. 52 white and 21 red. They are both coming together, equally committed to running into each other, and they're both taking a safe approach to it. That is not a blindside block. The fourth and final block we're going to look at shows that the pursuing player in white is completely focused on the runner. The kick return player, number 31, is lining up for a long run at him. Now he can complete a legal blindside block by keeping his hands out and initiating that way with his head up. But if he initiates with his shoulder, this will be an illegal blindside block. And you can see he crouches down and there's an upward thrust. And an upward thrust is a high-risk indicator for targeting, which is what we also have here. So even though the contact was initiated in the high chest, because of the forceful upward thrust, that force is all part of the same contact, and that is also targeting. That's a flagrant foul and justification for a disqualification. This is a great example of a team that's getting it. We've got a punt return, and we've got at least 2 blindside blocks, and both of them are legal, head up, hands out, and you can see the difference in the safety factor relating to these blocks. So let me get back to the end zone view. I'll stop frame it so we can see the approach angles, and you can see that these blocks are just as effective, can be forceful, can put defenders on the ground. And in this case, they accomplish everything that they're desired to do, and that the runner breaks free, gets around the corner, and advances for a long gain on this punt return. This is the website that I've created that gives you links to all of the blindside block training videos that I've developed over the last 2 years. So feel free to go to refereeclinic.com/BSB or blindside block, and you can have links to all of those training videos. Hopefully they will help you out throughout the year. Moving on, there was a change to the illegal participation foul with regards to scrimmage kicks. So if R is guilty of illegal participation that is not simultaneous with the snap, meaning someone comes on after the snap, and I suppose that that would also pertain to illegal substitution, somebody that comes on and then goes off, is now a PSK foul versus what was previous that had to be a succeeding spot foul. So anyway, just a quick rule change on that, really a very infrequent occurrence. The next big rule change is the pop-up onside kick. It's now illegal to kick the ball directly into the ground so that it pops up in a fashion that would simulate a pop-up kick without the ball hitting the ground. And I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but what we're trying to do is protect the receivers from getting clobbered when they're looking up at the ball and the ball's coming down, and then as soon as they touch it, they're simultaneously pounded by a very well-timed running hit. So what we've done is we said if they kick it immediately into the ground and it pops up, then it would be a dead ball foul. And I know that's contrary to logic because we have to determine that it is a pop-up kick before we kill it and then revert back to a dead ball foul. I personally think that this and all other fouls by K on free kicks should be tack-on fouls, but that's a discussion for another time. So if you determine that a pop-up kick has occurred, you have to shut it down as quickly as possible to try to avoid any unnecessary contact as a result of the players coming together. Here's a couple of examples of illegal pop-up kicks as of this year. And you can see this one, for obvious reasons, this is why the rule was changed. We have an elevated receiver who gets hit, then knocks to the ground, as a result gets injured. Here's another one, a pop-up kick, not as high, and the player's going to the ground, but he's still defenseless, and then he gets clobbered. So 2 great examples of what now is illegal. Now, what is legal as far as onside kick still goes is the double bounce. If the second bounce is high, or if the players attempt a kind of a squib kick or a spinner kick or a dribble kick, those will still be live as long as it's not first immediately into the ground with a high bounce after that. Now, what defines a high bounce? We're using average height of a kicker, or 6 feet. And the way we determine that is if you're a wing official, and that's going to be your mechanic, if you have to look up to the ball, if your eyes have to tilt up, that means that the receiver potentially is in danger of not being able to focus on the approaching contact, and therefore illegal. So we're using average height of the kickers, approximately 6 feet, but from a wing official mechanic, if you have to look up for the ball or if you have to shift your eye movement above the kicker's head, then we have an illegal pop-up kick if it is driven into the ground and then comes immediately up to that height level. Another challenging aspect of the pop-up kick rule is that some kickers are pretty good about popping up the kick without driving it into the ground. And if they do kick it off of the tee without driving it into the ground and it pops up like this diagram shows without hitting the ground, that is still a legal kick. So with your five-man mechanics, you need to find out which of your two wing guys, whoever's got the kicking team or the receiving team line, who is going to be primarily responsible for determining if the ball comes off the ground. Now let's look at a kick that we've determined to be legal. It is immediately kicked into the ground, and we're using a general rule of thumb of within 1 yard of the tee, but most illegal pop-up kicks will occur within a foot or 18 inches of the tee, but we're using a general rule of thumb within a yard. But the first bounce does not bounce higher than the kicker's head or, from a mechanic standpoint, require the officials to look up for the ball or exceeding 6 feet. And I know there's a lot of generalities in this rule, but that's what we're dealing with. So in this case, though, because the ball does not jump up on that first bounce or any subsequent bounce after that, for that matter, we've determined this to be a legal kick. Now, from the same game, and this looks very similar, this first bounce hits within a yard and does bounce up at approximately the 6-foot level, just barely above the kicker's head. But if we're using that as our guideline, then this would be an illegal pop-up kick. Additionally, what we have here is targeting, and that targeting is caused by the kicking team player who comes in, lowers his helmet, drives it into the face mask of the receiver. So even had this kick been low enough to be not considered a pop-up kick, that targeting would still apply. And if we do shut this play down and that action continues and that targeting occurs, it's still targeting. And that's flagrant, and that player should be ejected regardless of whether or not this is an illegal pop-up kick or the play is allowed to continue. If that contact occurs, still a foul.
But look at that pristine hat.
Targeting, number 53, the kicking team. The foul was flagrant. Player has disqualified himself from further participation in this game.
And that's the reason why players need to pay more attention on how you have to hit other defenders. Dylan Eberhardt now ejected, the second mule taken out of the game.
Just a quick recap. Mechanically, it's going to be primarily the responsibility of the line judge and the back judge and a five-man mechanic for determining the legality of these kicks, or if it is illegal as a result of a kick immediately into the ground that resembles a kick directly off of the tee. Now let's look at another kick. It comes right off of the tee, and we do have kind of a questionable bounce as to the elevation. So if this is ruled that it is a kick that you have to look up for, or a kick that's higher than the kicker's heads, then obviously we're going to shut this down and try to avoid all of this contact. If it's not ruled illegal, then we still have the other aspects of the kick to consider, and one of which is this player on the kicking team, number 99, who goes down and hooks the receiving team before the kicking team is able to possess the ball. That's an illegal block. So even it, and it's possibly holding, but even if it's not holding, it's still an illegal block because the kickers can't initiate contact with a receiving team player prior to their being able to possess the ball. So keep an eye out for all of these things on these free kicks. I know it's difficult, but we're going to work through it. Next thing we're going to cover is defenseless players. The National Federation extended the list of the people that are included on defenseless players, but it really doesn't change the rule much. The quarterbacks are still protected the way the quarterbacks were protected. The punters and the holders and the long snappers, they're still protected the way they always were. But the one significant addition to the defenseless player list was the sliding runner. And typically this is a quarterback who wants to protect himself from being contacted after he's gained his first down or whatever significant yardage he was able to acquire. But the tricky part about a sliding quarterback is if we're going to refer to him as defenseless, it doesn't mean he can't be hit, because if you're committed to your drive, you're probably still going to hit him, as was the case in this play. What's important, though, is he's defenseless, so in order for you to contact him, you automatically already have to be committed. And because the slide puts him at a lower elevation, it would take the defender's effort to readjust his target point to a lower level in order to make contact with the head. So if you're a sliding quarterback and the defender makes contact with the head, either forcefully with his helmet or shoulder or arm, that is still going to be a foul. And the other interesting part about a sliding quarterback or runner is that because he becomes defenseless as soon as he starts his slide, defenses are going to complain that, hey, we got to lay off of this guy, so why is he getting the extra yardage gained from the time that he starts his slide until he actually contacts the ground? Now, college has addressed this, and they say as soon as he starts his slide, that's the end of progress. If anything else happens after that, it's all dead ball. And I think that's a logical way to approach it. So from a philosophy standpoint, at least here in the islands, that's how we're going to handle it. If you start your slide, that is the end of the play, down or not, because it's limiting the type of contact that can be made on you, and it's giving you a advantage from a yardage standpoint if we don't call it dead at that time. You guys outside of the state of Hawaii need to check with your governing authority as to whether or not you want to use that philosophy at the beginning of the slide. The definition of a beginning of a slide is when your posterior drops or your butt drops. Also critical to this is that they say obviously giving himself up by sliding feet first. So you need to slide feet first in order to get that protection. And the giving himself up language also kind of falls into our, if a player fakes giving a knee, then he's giving himself up, and we also rule that dead. So from a philosophy standpoint, I think these two go together pretty well. The next rule change involves the game clock, and if you're under 2 minutes, meaning at 1:59 and under, and a penalty occurs, then the clock will automatically stop, as it does with all penalties. And at that point, the penalty is enforced. Now, before, typically, depending on the type of play or the situation that was going on, if the penalty stopped the clock, then the clock would start again. But now they're giving the coach the option to keep the clock stopped. And what this does is it prevents the offense from committing a penalty late in the play clock operation or late in the 25-second clock. And then after enforcement of that, another 25-second play clock starts, and then the game clock runs down another 25 seconds. So basically, they're trying to eliminate time to prevent a comeback. So that's the reason for this rule. It's a pretty simple one, but now coaches have to be prepared to decide whether or not they want the clock to stay stopped or wind as would be normal in any typical running clock situation. Another rule change involves prosthetic limbs. If a prosthetic limb, either arm or leg, comes off of the ball carrier and that ball carrier is still in possession of the ball at the time that the limb is removed or falls off, then the play is dead. Similar to your helmet coming off. I know that this doesn't sound like something that happens very frequently, but it's one of our rule changes this year. Next is it's encroachment if a defender slaps at a ball during the snap process. So as the snapper is bringing the ball back, normally that's a very quick movement, but sometimes these defenders can anticipate that and they take a swipe at the ball or the arm. Well, in that case, if that contact occurs with the ball or the arm prior to the completion of the snap action, then it's a dead ball foul for encroachment on the defense. We can all breathe a sigh of relief. Now, face guarding is no longer part of the rule book. In order to have pass interference, either offense or defensive, there has to be contact. So I know it wasn't called very often, but occasionally it was. There was always a little bit of controversy about it because whether you're putting the hand up to block the ball in a receiver's hand or whether you're putting your hand up to block the vision of the receiver, now all of that is out the window. Face guarding is now legal. Pass interference requires contact. Quick editorial change. Now electronic signage used to signal players from the sideline is illegal. It's always, or at least in the recent history, been illegal to use electronic devices to communicate with your players, such as an electronic bullhorn, but now they've made it very specific that electronic signage is also illegal from the sideline. Points of emphasis almost always include avoiding illegal contact and helmet contact, and we spent a great deal of time talking about those two important topics. But 3 and 4 this year, we're going to spend also a lot of time on sideline management and control, professional communication with the coaches, and also proper enforcement of penalties for violations of equipment rules. Let's start with sideline management, and what is mistakenly, very commonly referred to as the coaching box, is actually the restricted area. And the restricted area during live ball play and times immediately after live ball play, while we're separating the colors is what we call it. That area is not to be occupied by anyone other than field officials. Now, once the colors have separated and we have a true dead ball period, a maximum of 3 coaches are allowed into that area to help with the coaching, and substitutes can cross through that area. But no one else is allowed in that area at any time. Once the snapper puts his hand on the ball as we're preparing for the next play, that means that the snap is imminent, and that is the signal to all coaches on the offense and defense, whether they're behind the line of scrimmage or beyond the line of scrimmage, to vacate that area. My friend Tony Corrente made a sideline video that talks about how we maintain and manage those areas, and we'll play that for you now.
The purpose of this tape is to ensure that coaches, players, game officials, and all personnel associated with the game understand that sideline management and control of the sidelines is of utmost importance. That while the ball is in play, that coaches, substitutes, and unauthorized attendance in the team area may not be between the sideline and the coaching line or in the field of play. What this means is that 6-foot area from the sideline back, commonly referred to as in the white, should be left clear from the time that the ball is snapped until after the play completely concludes, which means that the teams who are on the ground or teams in a sideline area actually separate themselves and begin going back to the respective huddles or to the respective team areas. Encroachment upon this area will require that game officials will give the first occurrence a sideline warning to the head coach, informing him that his players and personnel need to keep themselves back of this 6-foot area. If there is a second occurrence at any time in the game, automatically a 5-yard penalty will result, and any subsequent occurrences, a 15-yard penalty will result. Let's take a look at what we expect a sideline to look like and how we expect team behaviors to occur. Please note, if you will, the sideline action of both players and coaches, well out of the white area, well out of that 6-foot boundary that we've just referred to. And as a play develops and officials go downfield, that 6-foot boundary area allows them to officiate the play to the best of their ability. This next video clip illustrates the concern about sideline management and sideline control. As you can see, coaches and players are in the white area. They are not in the coaching box, which is 6 feet behind the sideline, and that's where they should be. At this point, with the fact that players and coaches are in this white area and a snap is imminent, this will be a concern that will draw an automatic sideline control warning if it was the first occurrence. If this is the second occurrence in the game, a 5-yard penalty will automatically be instituted. If this happens to be the third one, it will be a 15-yard penalty for an unfair act. As you will see as this play develops, the sideline is going to step back, clear itself, and watch the second actions that take place. Through much of the play, you see players still in the white, and then they get out as the offense comes to that sideline. Immediately, as a play develops, you see players and coaches now coming onto the sideline into the white and somewhat onto the field. Players and coaches are not to come into the white area until well after we see both teams finish their action and start to separate themselves to go to either respective sidelines or to their own team huddles. Once again, here is a video clip that shows coaches in the white area, both on the offensive and the defensive side of the ball. It doesn't matter whether or not the offense is going towards you or going away from you. Coaches and players are not allowed into the white. So when you see this coach at the 46-yard line in the offensive backfield, this is enough to draw the warning. You see the coach at the 40-yard line and another coach at the 36-yard line. All three of these coaches are suspect to sideline warnings and all the ramifications of their actions. This next clip clearly illustrates the issue at hand. Coaches, players, team attendants must be at a minimum of 6 feet behind the sideline. And as you can see in this case, we have numerous coaches in the offensive backfield, numerous coaches on the defensive side of the ball. As the play develops, you'll notice that the crowd begins to clear a zone for the players and action to occur. But nonetheless, when the play is over, as you will see in this next sequence, when the play is over, coaches and players begin to surround the game officials, not allowing them clear view of the action in the sideline. And as a result, this coach, as you will see, who steps in front of the referee and pushes him aside actually, could generate a major penalty for contact with a game official, but nonetheless, just stepping on the field and coming into the area prior to this offensive player leaving the sideline, going back toward his own team area, could draw the sideline warning. This next play has a very unique situation with coaches in the white. In this case, you see the coach at the 33-yard line at the bottom of the screen. Prior to putting the ball in play, this coach must be out of the white area. Now as the play develops, watch what happens during the return of the kick. And at the top of the screen, you see the coach who gets excited and is going to run along with the player at the top of the screen. He's in the white the entire time, obstructing the vision and possibly the work of the game officials themselves. What appears to be very innocent offensive coaches in the offensive backfield. However, as you will see, the ball is intercepted. And the first clip from the sideline shows that there are some coaches in the way. But when we go to the end zone shot, what you will see is the fact that coaches now are obstructing. They're in the white, obstructing one of the deep officials from doing his duties, actually having to push them back, getting them out of the white. And as you can see, coaches crowding all the way to the sideline during the dead ball action. Once again, coaches stay out of the white, players out of the white until such time that play is completely concluded and we see players returning to their sideline or respective bench areas. In this play, you see a coach coming onto the field because his player made a fantastic defensive play. Congratulating him, patting him on the rear end, A-OK, not a problem with congratulating your players. High fives. The only thing we want you to be aware of is don't rush on the field, do not taunt your opponent. That defensive player, the offensive player of your opponent, deserves the same respect that your player did for such a great play. So we let you come onto the field, coaches, to give a congratulatory to your players. You do not come all the way out on the field. Once again, at or near the sideline was going to be the limitation.
Now let's move into player equipment, and we're just going to talk real quickly about jerseys. The picture titled A, the jersey's too long. If your jersey goes beyond your belt line, your jersey needs to be tucked in. The jersey in picture 2 does not have to be tucked in because it is cropped at the belt line, but the t-shirt hanging out underneath it is illegal, and the t-shirt needs to be tucked in. The best solution for this is to get them all the way tucked in before the game, or to get your scissors out and cut those t-shirts off. Here's what's going to happen. If it comes out during normal play, you've got 25 seconds to fix it. We'll stop the game, give you time to fix it. If you can't fix it in 25 seconds, you must leave the game unless you call a timeout, and then you can, of course, come back for the next play. If you come off the sideline with illegal equipment or improper equipment, as in picture B, we are going to stop the game and give the team an official warning that the players are not properly equipped or properly wearing required equipment. Once that warning is given, if it happens a second time when we stop the game, that is a delay of game on your team and will be for every occurrence after that. That includes shirts untucked, back pads exposed, knee pads pulled up completely over the knees as in this description, Any type of equipment that you're coming off the sideline with a problem that we have to stop the game, after that one warning will now result in a delay of game. So here's a video of a coin toss. You can see the players wearing the dark jerseys coming off. They're already in an illegal equipment situation because those shirts are untucked and hanging below their waist. As you can see in this next still shot, this player is properly equipped. His shirt is cropped at the belt line and his undershirt is tucked in. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, the player on the kicking team nearest the sideline has his undershirt hanging down. That is going to be a violation that will stop the game and give you your official warning for. Now, as play continues, you can see that things pile up, and as players get up, that 36 is now untucked. Now, 36 came untucked as a result of action that occurred during the down. That is not a problem for us, and we'll give them an opportunity to fix it. As this play gets underway, you'll notice a couple of people are improperly equipped, 27 shirt, 24 shirt, and as you see the player wearing the white jersey who's got half of it white and half of it black undershirt, that is also not acceptable. Moving forward, hopefully we have enough time to get the proper jerseys with the sizes and the lengths worked out. One thing I would suggest is if you're going to wear an undershirt that it be the same color as your primary jersey color so that at least you have some conformity there, and make sure that they're cropped off low enough so that they do not start hanging over your pants. I'm not sure why, but tooth and mouth protectors that are completely clear or completely white are legal again. Also, just a note that in the state tournament, we do not allow designer mouthpieces, meaning the ones that show the fangs or the crooked teeth or any kind of blood or even any type of writing or symbols, similar to the restriction on your eye black that you can't have any writing, symbols, or any markings on that. Same thing goes in the state tournament for your mouthpieces. Now, as far as the regular season is concerned, take that up with your regular league representatives. But from a state tournament standpoint, keep them plain. Another equipment reminder that the gloves that you wear need to carry either the NOCSAE or the SFIA certification logo on the wristband. And also, as always, moving forward, all of our officials are taking concussion awareness. We look at players and coaches to help us with any symptoms and to prevent any further participation if we need to look at a kid. Also, make sure that all the players are properly hydrated, and officials, if you've got an extremely hot game or indications that people are feeling the effects of heat, you have every right to stop the game, let the players get rested and hydrated before we restart. Hopefully we have a great 2017 season. I'm really looking forward to it. Let's get this thing kicked off.